The house stood like a palace on the edge of the city. Vast white walls, gleaming glass windows, and a driveway long enough to swallow 3 cars end to end. To the wealthy Carter family, this was not just a house. It was a statement, a declaration, that they had risen high above the ordinary struggles of the world. But to Amara, it was something entirely different. She stood on the front steps that first day, clutching her small bag of belongings, staring up at the mansion's sheer size. The stone pillars rose like guardians, the carved wooden doors loomed ahead, and she felt as though she were stepping into another world, one that wasn't meant for people like her. Amara was in her early 30s, tall and strong from years of hard work, yet her eyes carried a softness that children often trusted instantly. She had come from a small town far away, leaving behind an aging mother and 2 younger siblings who still relied on her. Work was scarce, and this job, a live-in maid for the Carter family, had been her best chance to earn enough money to send home. The agency had warned her. "The Carters are particular. They're used to things being done their way. Keep your head down, and you'll be fine." She thought she understood. But the moment she stepped inside, she realized the world she had entered was colder than she expected. The mansion was pristine, polished marble floors that reflected the chandeliers above, furniture draped in cream and gold, and long hallways, where the sound of one's footsteps seemed to echo endlessly. There were no signs of warmth, no laughter, no clutter that spoke of life. It was a house designed to impress, not to comfort. Mrs. Carter, the matriarch, was the first to greet her. A tall woman with sharp features and eyes that scanned Amara, up and down as though evaluating a piece of furniture. Her handshake was firm but distant. "You'll find the staff quarters at the back," she said briskly, leading Amara through the hall. "Your duties are simple. Clean, cook, and help with the children when needed. You'll find we run this house with order. Do not disturb that order." Amara nodded, her lips pressed together. She was used to this tone, the way wealthy families looked at her not as a person, but as help. She told herself it didn't matter. As long as she was paid, as long as she could send money home, she could endure it. But then she heard it. A sound, faint and fragile, drifting down the hallway. A baby's cry. It was soft at first, almost muffled but unmistakable. Amara's head turned instinctively, her heart tugged by the sound. She had always been drawn to children, their innocence, their need for protection. Mrs. Carter noticed and sighed. "The twins," she said as though the word were a burden. "You'll meet them soon enough. Their nanny is inconsistent, so you may be asked to fill in." Amara's chest tightened with a mix of emotions. She had lost a child of her own years ago, a pain she never spoke of. Perhaps that was why she felt so attuned to the cries of little ones. She followed Mrs. Carter silently, but already something about that cry lingered in her mind. Life in the Carter mansion settled into a rhythm, but it was a rhythm Amara never fully grew used to. The mornings were filled with cleaning and serving breakfasts, the afternoons with laundry and errands. The Carters themselves were distant. Mr. Carter spent most of his time in his study or away at meetings, while Mrs. Carter busied herself with charity luncheons and social clubs. The only moments that felt real, that pulled Amara out of her, mechanical routine, were the times she spent with the twins. Ethan and Emily were barely a year old, still at the stage of chubby cheeks, curious eyes, and the occasional fits of unexplained tears. Their official nanny, a young woman named Chelsea, seemed more interested in her phone than in the children. She often disappeared for hours, leaving the babies in their cribs unattended. It was Amara who picked up the slack. She fed them when they cried, rocked them gently in her arms until they slept, and whispered songs from her childhood in a soft, soothing voice. The twins grew attached to her quickly. Ethan would reach out his tiny hands whenever she entered the room, while Emily would giggle at the sound of Amara's laugh. But with that bond came something else. Awareness. Amara began to notice patterns in their cries. The hungry whimpers, the sleepy murmurs, the sharp cries of discomfort. She could tell the difference between a need and a fear. And sometimes the cries didn't sound right at all. There were nights when she lay awake in her small room, the sound of muffled crying drifting through the thin walls. She would rise quietly, tiptoe down the hall, and find the twins sobbing in their cribs while the nanny slept in a chair, her phone glowing in her hand. Amara would pick them up, hush them, hold them close until their trembling stopped. Each time, she felt a pang of unease. Something wasn't right in this house. The day everything changed began like any other. The sky was overcast, casting a gray light through the tall windows. Amara was polishing the banister of the grand staircase, her cloth moving in steady circles, when she heard it again. A cry. But this time it was different. It wasn't the usual cry of hunger or sleepiness. It was sharp, desperate, almost like a scream. It cut through the silence of the house, making Amara's heart lurch. She froze, the cloth slipping from her hand. Her ears strained. The sound came from upstairs, the nursery. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. She climbed the stairs quickly, her chest tight, her pulse thudding in her ears. The cry grew louder with each step, more frantic, more alarming. When she reached the nursery door, she hesitated for only a moment before pushing it open. And what she saw inside left her horrified. The nursery was bathed in a pale, eerie glow from the cloudy daylight filtering through the half-drawn curtains. The cheerful pastel walls, decorated with painted stars and moons, seemed to mock the heaviness of the moment. Ethan was in his crib, his tiny fists gripping the white bars so tightly his knuckles turned pale. His face was red, his little chest heaving as he screamed in terror. His cries ricocheted off the walls, sharp and raw, filled with a fear that pierced Amara to her core. But it wasn't just the baby that stopped Amara cold. Standing over the crib was Lily, the Carters' eldest daughter. Barely 16, her long blonde hair disheveled, her pale face streaked with tears. In her trembling hands was a pillow lifted just above Ethan's fragile body. Amara's breath caught in her throat. For a split second, the world seemed to tilt, her mind refusing to believe what her eyes were seeing. "Lily!" she cried, her voice breaking the tense silence. The teenager jerked back as though burned, spinning around to face Amara. Her eyes were wide, glassy with desperation. The pillow slipped slightly in her grip, but didn't fall. You shouldn't be here," Lily stammered, her voice shaky, defensive. Amara stepped forward, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. "What are you doing?" Her voice trembled, but beneath it was a steel she didn't know she had. Lily's lip quivered, her eyes darting between the pillow and the maid. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Nobody understands. They don't care about me anymore. It's always about them now, the twins, the babies. I'm invisible. I don't exist." She raised the pillow again, and Amara's blood ran cold. In that instant, instinct took over. Amara lunged forward, her strong hands gripping the pillow and wrenching it away from the girl. The pillow fell to the floor with a dull thud, harmless now, but carrying the weight of what could have been. Ethan wailed louder, his tiny body shaking as though he sensed the danger that had hovered over him. Lily collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She buried her face in her hands, rocking back and forth. "I didn't mean it. I just wanted it all to stop. I can't stand it anymore." Amara stood frozen for a moment, breathing hard, the echo of the near tragedy ringing in her ears. Her hands shook as she reached down and lifted Ethan from his crib, holding him tightly against her chest. She could feel his tiny heartbeat racing against hers. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're safe now. You're safe." But even as she comforted the baby, her eyes lingered on Lily, who sat crumpled on the floor, her sobs racking her small frame. Minutes passed in heavy silence, broken only by Ethan's cries and Lily's muffled sobs. Amara rocked the baby gently, humming a low tune to soothe him. Slowly, his cries softened, though his little fists remained clenched, his body trembling against her shoulder. Finally, Amara spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "Lily, look at me." The girl shook her head, hiding her face. "Look at me," Amara repeated, her tone carrying an authority that surprised even herself. Lily's tear-streaked face lifted, her eyes red and swollen. She looked so young, so broken, that Amara's anger softened into something else. Sorrow. "You could have hurt him," Amara said, her voice heavy. "Do you realize what you almost did?" Lily's shoulders shook as fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I know, she cried. I hate them sometimes. I hate how Mom and Dad only care about the babies now. They don't notice me anymore. I'm nothing to them." Amara's heart clenched. She recognized the pain in the girl's voice, the aching loneliness of being unseen, unheard, unloved. "You're not nothing," Amara said softly, "but what you almost did, that would have changed everything. For Ethan, for you, for this whole family." Lily pressed her hands over her ears, shaking her head violently. "Stop! I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about anything." Amara wanted to kneel beside her, to offer comfort, but Ethan's fragile body in her arms reminded her where her first duty lay. She tightened her hold on the baby, whispering reassurance as his tiny sobs faded into hiccups. It was then that the nursery door creaked open. Chelsea, the nanny, stood in the doorway, her phone in her hand, her expression lazy and half-bored. "What's going on in here?" she muttered, chewing gum. Her eyes flicked to Lily on the floor, then to Amara holding Ethan. "Why is he crying so much?" Amara's eyes narrowed, fury surging within her. This girl, tasked with protecting the twins, hadn't been there when it mattered most. If Amara had arrived even a minute later— "Get out!" Amara snapped, her voice sharp as a whip. Chelsea blinked, stunned. "Excuse me? You don't get to tell me—" "Get out!" The venom in Amara's tone silenced her. For the first time since she had arrived in the Carter mansion, Amara allowed her anger to show. Chelsea muttered something under her breath but backed out of the room, rolling her eyes. The door clicked shut, leaving Amara, Ethan, and Lily alone once more. Time seemed to slow. Amara sat in the rocking chair, cradling Ethan, while Lily curled into herself on the floor, her sobs eventually softening into quiet sniffles. Finally, Amara broke the silence. "Lily, do your parents know how you feel?" Lily let out a bitter laugh through her tears. "Of course not. They don't care. Mom only cares about her parties and her charities. Dad's always gone. And when they are here, it's all about the twins. Feed the twins, dress the twins, show off the twins. Nobody asks me how I'm doing. Nobody notices when I'm hurting." Amara listened, her heart heavy. She wanted to be angry at Lily, but all she felt was pity. This girl wasn't a monster. She was a child drowning in neglect, grasping desperately for attention in the worst way possible. "I see you," Amara said quietly. Lily's head snapped up, confusion in her swollen eyes. "What?" "I see you," Amara repeated, her voice steady. "I see your pain. I see how lonely you are. But hurting your baby brother, that's not the way. That will never give you what you need." Tears welled up again in Lily's eyes, and she buried her face in her knees. "I just wanted them to notice me," she whispered. Amara's grip on Ethan tightened. Then let them see you. But not like this. Don't let your pain turn you into someone you'll regret forever. You're more than this moment, Lily. So much more. The girl's shoulders shook, her sobs raw and aching, and as Amara held the baby close, she realized something chilling. She had walked into that room at exactly the right moment. If she hadn't been there, she didn't finish the thought. All she knew was that she would never forget the sound of that desperate cry, or the sight of Lily standing over the crib with a pillow in her hands. The nursery was still, but the stillness felt heavy, suffocating. The kind of silence that presses against your chest, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Amara sat in the rocking chair. Ethan nestled against her shoulder. His cries had finally softened into whimpers, each tiny hiccup vibrating through his fragile chest. His small hand gripped a fold of her blouse as though anchoring himself to her, refusing to let go. She rocked him gently, humming an old lullaby her mother used to sing, though her own heart was anything but calm. Her pulse still pounded in her ears, her hands still trembled from the adrenaline of what had just happened. Her eyes flicked to the floor. Lily sat curled in the corner, knees tucked to her chest, arms wrapped around them tightly. Her face was blotchy from tears, her hair tangled, her gaze distant. She looked less like a would-be aggressor and more like a lost child. Amara's emotions warred within her. Anger, pity, fear, sorrow. She couldn't deny the horror of what almost happened. But she also couldn't ignore the pain in the girl's eyes, the desperate hunger for attention that had driven her to such an act. Lily, Amara said softly, breaking the silence. The girl flinched as if expecting condemnation, but Amara's voice was calm, almost motherly. Come here, Lily shook her head violently. No, you hate me now. Everyone will hate me. Amara shifted Ethan in her arms, patting his back as he let out another tiny whimper. I don't hate you, she said firmly. If I hated you, I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be asking you to come closer. For a moment, Lily didn't move. Then slowly, she uncrossed her arms and crawled a little closer, stopping just short of the rocking chair. She kept her eyes down. Unable to meet Amara's gaze, Amara reached out one hand, the other still supporting Ethan. Her palm was open, patient. Take my hand, child. Lily hesitated, then placed her trembling hand in Amara's. Amara squeezed it gently. You're hurting, she said quietly. I can see that. But hurting others won't take away your pain. It will only make it heavier. Lily's lip quivered. I know, she whispered, her voice breaking. I know, but I didn't know what else to do. They don't care, Amara. Mom doesn't even look at me anymore. Dad, he just pats my head and says I'll understand when I'm older. But I'm drowning, and nobody sees it. Amara's throat tightened. The rawness of Lily's words echoed. Her own past, years of feeling invisible, years of working hard and still being dismissed, reduced to nothing more than the help. I see you, Amara said again, her voice stronger now. I see you, Lily, and I won't let you drown. Not if you let me help. The girl's tears spilled over, her shoulders shaking as she leaned forward, resting her forehead against Amara's knee. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean to. I just wanted the crying to stop. The noise. The way it pulls them away from me. I wanted quiet. I wanted them to notice me. Amara stroked her hair gently, her other hand still rubbing. Circles on Ethan's back. She was balancing two fragile souls at once. One innocent infant who had nearly lost everything, and one broken teenager who had nearly thrown everything away. The minutes stretched, the air heavy with sorrow and relief. Eventually, Ethan drifted off into an uneasy sleep against Amara's shoulder, his tiny breaths warm against her neck. She shifted him carefully, laying him back in his crib. Her heart clenched at the sight of his small chest rising and falling, at the thought of how close he had come to never taking another breath. When she turned back, Lily was watching her, eyes wide, filled with something like fear and hope. "Are you going to tell them?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "Mom and Dad? Are you going to tell them what I almost did?" The question hit Amara like a stone. Her first instinct was yes. Of course she should tell them. The Carters deserved to know that their daughter had nearly harmed her brother. Ethan's safety demanded it. But then she looked at Lily, the desperation in her eyes, the fragile thread of trust that had just begun to form between them. If she told the parents bluntly, what would happen? Would Lily be punished, cast aside, labeled a danger? Would they even take the time to understand her pain? Amara doubted it. From what she had seen, the Carters were too wrapped up in their image, too distracted by appearances and their new babies. But could she really keep something, this grave a secret? Her heart ached under the weight of the choice. "Lily," she said slowly, "what you did, what you almost did, it can't happen again. Do you understand me?" The girl nodded frantically, tears dripping down her cheeks. I swear I won't ever. I don't want to be that kind of person. I just want them to see me again." Amara studied her for a long moment. Then she sighed, her shoulders heavy. "I won't tell them today, but only if you promise me something." Lily's eyes widened. "Anything. You will never ever raise a hand against your brother or sister again," Amara said, her voice firm as stone. "Not out of anger, not out of jealousy, not ever. If you feel like you're drowning again, you come to me. Do you hear me, child? You come to me instead." Lily nodded vigorously, fresh tears spilling over. "I promise. I swear it." Amara reached out and wiped the girl's cheek with her thumb. "Good, because you have a chance to choose who you will be, Lily. Don't let this moment define you as a monster. Let it be the moment you decided to change." For the rest of the afternoon, Amara stayed in the nursery. She sat between the two cribs, watching over the sleeping twins, while Lily sat nearby, quiet and subdued. The house was silent, but Amara felt anything but calm. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains, made her more aware of the fragile peace she was trying to hold together. When Mrs. Carter finally returned that evening, the sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor echoed through the mansion. Amara stiffened, her heart racing. She hadn't told Lily what she would say if asked about the day, and the uncertainty gnawed at her. "Amara," Mrs. Carter called from downstairs, her voice sharp. "Where are the children?" Amara glanced at Lily, whose face went pale. Rose smoothed her uniform and carried herself to the top of the stairs. "They're asleep, ma'am," she said, her tone calm and professional. Mrs. Carter looked up at her, her perfectly painted lips pursed. "Good. They'll need to be fresh tomorrow. We have guests coming." She didn't ask about Lily. She didn't ask how the children had been during the day. She simply turned and walked toward the dining room. Amara's chest tightened. She had made the right choice, she thought bitterly. If Mrs. Carter couldn't even muster interest in her eldest daughter's whereabouts, how would she have reacted to the truth? She returned to the nursery, closing the door softly behind her. Lily looked at her with wide, questioning eyes. "She didn't ask," Amara said simply. Lily let out a shaky breath of relief, then whispered, "Thank you." Amara nodded, but her heart was heavy. She had shielded the girl, but she also knew the secret she now carried was dangerous. That night, long after the mansion had gone quiet, Amara lay awake in her small bed. The image replayed in her mind over and over, Lily standing over Ethan's crib, the pillow in her hands, the baby's desperate cry. She pressed a hand over her eyes, tears stinging at the corners. She had saved him this time. But what if there was a next time? What if her faith in Lily was misplaced? The weight of the choice pressed on her chest like a stone. But beneath the fear was something else: resolve. If no one else in this house would see the danger, the pain, the cracks in this family, then she would. If no one else would protect these children, then she would, no matter the cost. The night passed in fragments of uneasy sleep. Every creak of the house, every rustle of wind against the window seemed to jolt Amara awake. In her dreams, she heard Ethan's cry again, sharp, desperate, echoing endlessly through the halls. In her dreams, she always arrived a moment too late. When the gray light of dawn seeped into her small room, she rose wearily, her body heavy, but her mind sharp. She dressed quickly, her thoughts circling around the events of the previous day. The secret she carried sat like a stone in her chest. She stepped into the hallway and paused outside the nursery door. Inside, the twins were sleeping peacefully, their little breaths soft and steady. Lily's voice floated from the other side of the room, a quiet murmur of words she thought no one could hear. "I didn't mean it," Lily whispered. "I didn't mean it, Ethan. I'm sorry." Amara's throat tightened. She pushed the door open gently, and Lily looked up, startled, her face pale in the early light. "Did you hear me?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Amara said softly. She crossed the room, checking the baby's blankets, smoothing them with practiced care. "And I believe you." Lily blinked rapidly, as though tears threatened again. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not even myself anymore. I hate them one second and love them the next." Amara turned to her, her gaze steady. "There is nothing wrong with you, child. You are hurting. And when people hurt, they do things they regret. But the difference between losing yourself and finding yourself is what you choose next." Lily's lip quivered. "But what if I make another bad choice?" "Then you come to me," Amara said firmly. "Every time you feel the darkness rising, you come to me. Don't hide it. Don't fight it alone." The girl nodded slowly, her shoulders sagging under invisible weight. For the first time since Amara had known her, Lily's gaze held a flicker of trust. The days that followed were delicate. Amara noticed Lily hovering more in the nursery, not with malice this time, but with a quiet guilt. She would watch Amara feed the twins, sometimes reaching out tentatively to hold a bottle, as though trying to repair the broken pieces of her place in the family. Amara let her help, but always with a watchful eye. She saw the tremor in Lily's hands, the haunted look that sometimes crossed her face. She didn't trust the danger to be gone, not yet. One afternoon, while rocking Emily to sleep, Amara caught Lily staring at her. "You love them, don't you?" Lily asked suddenly. Amara smiled faintly. "Yes, very much." "More than your own family?" The question cut deep. Amara thought of her mother, her siblings far away, the letters she wrote but seldom received in return. She thought of the child she had once carried but lost too soon. "They are the family I have here," she said finally. "And sometimes love isn't divided, it's multiplied. Loving them doesn't take away from the love I have for others. It only makes my heart fuller." Lily looked down, her face shadowed. "I wish I knew how to feel like that. I only feel empty." Amara's gaze softened. "That emptiness can be filled, Lily, but not with jealousy, not with anger. It can only be filled with love, the kind you choose to give, even when it's hard." Meanwhile, the Carters remained oblivious. Mrs. Carter bustled about with her luncheons and fundraisers, her attention focused on maintaining her spotless image. Mr. Carter was a ghost in his own home, always locked in his study or away on trips. Neither seemed to notice the subtle changes, the way Lily lingered near the nursery, the way Amara hovered protectively, the way the baby's cries sometimes carried an edge of remembered fear. Amara wanted to scream at them sometimes. Can't. You see your daughter is drowning. Can't you see the danger under your own roof? But she stayed silent, her words caught in her throat. She had promised Lily she wouldn't tell, and more than that, she knew they wouldn't understand. So she carried the burden alone. One evening, a storm rolled in. Rain pounded against the tall windows and thunder rattled the glass. The mansion seemed to shiver under the weight of it, its vastness suddenly claustrophobic. Amara was in the nursery, humming softly to the twins, when the lights flickered and went out. The room plunged into darkness, broken only by the faint glow of lightning through the curtains. The twins stirred, whimpering, and Lily, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, let out a small gasp. "I hate storms," she whispered. "When I was little, I used to think the thunder was monsters coming to take me away." Amara lit a small lamp she had kept by the crib, its warm glow casting long shadows across the room. "There are no monsters here," she said gently. "Only us." But even as she said it, she felt the weight of her own lie, because she knew the monsters that haunted this house weren't outside in the storm. They lived in neglect, in loneliness, in the cracks between family members who had forgotten how to see one another. Later that night, after the storm passed, Amara lay awake again, listening. She had become attuned to every sound, the creak of the house, the sigh of the wind, the faint noises of the children breathing, and then she heard it. Not a cry this time, but a voice, Lily's voice, soft and trembling, drifting through the thin wall. "I'll be better. I'll be better. I'll protect you now." Amara closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. Perhaps the girl meant it. Perhaps the moment in the nursery had been her breaking point, her chance to change. But Amara knew change didn't happen in a day. It was fragile, like the flame of a candle, easily snuffed out if left unguarded. So she made a silent vow. "I will watch. I will listen. I will protect them, no matter what." Weeks turned into months. The memory of that terrible day faded from the household's surface, but it remained etched in Amara's heart. She never spoke of it. Not to Chelsea, not to the Carters, not to anyone. But she remembered. Always. Whenever Ethan cried too sharply, she felt her pulse quicken, her feet moving instinctively toward the nursery. Whenever Lily lingered too close, Amara's eyes followed, alert and wary. Slowly, Lily changed. The bitterness in her tone softened, the sharp edges dulled by the bond she began to form with Amara. She started helping more with the twins, feeding them, playing with them, even singing to them in her wavering voice. Amara never let her guard down completely, but she began to hope. Hope that the girl who once held a pillow in trembling hands could become the sister the twins deserved. Hope that the house, for all its coldness, could hold warmth again. One evening, months later, Amara sat in the nursery with all three children. Ethan was asleep in her lap, Emily dozing in her crib, and Lily sitting cross-legged on the floor, quietly sketching in a notebook. The room was peaceful, the kind of peace Amara had once thought impossible here. Lily looked up suddenly and asked, "Why do you care so much, Amara? They're not your children. We're not your family." Amara smiled faintly, brushing a curl of hair from Ethan's forehead. "Family isn't always about blood, Lily. Sometimes it's about who shows up when no one else does, who stays when it's hardest, who protects you when you can't protect yourself." Lily's eyes glistened. She looked down at her notebook, then back at Amara. "Then maybe you're more family than anyone else here." The words pierced Amara's heart, filling her with both sorrow and joy. She had come to this house as a maid, but in the silence of the nursery, in the echo of cries and whispers, she had become something else entirely. a guardian. Years later, when Amara would look back on her life, there were many moments that blurred together. The endless days of work, the quiet nights, the unspoken slights of wealth and privilege. But there was one moment that remained as sharp as broken glass in her memory. The day she heard a baby's cry, rushed upstairs, and saw a teenage girl with a pillow in her hands. That moment had changed everything, because it was the moment Amara realized the truth she had carried ever since. The greatest danger in a house of wealth isn't what waits outside the doors. It's what is neglected within, and as long as she lived, Amara would never stop listening for that cry.